Always.
All right, I am going to call this meeting to order. It is a Sumner County Regional Planning Commission special call work study. It is October 29th at 5 p.m. And yes, I guess we'll do the pledge. How about that? I'll just wait. All right. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Issa, would you lead us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We ask for your guidance as we make decisions to benefit the residents of the county. Lord, lead our hand that we are doing it for the reasons to make everyone's life better and not for our own purposes. Lord, help us to guide and direct us in the proper manner so that we will be fair and just to all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so I think we have anybody signed up to speak through. I have any public comments. I don't think there's anybody here, but so just, it's a study session, so there's no voting, and there's just one item. It's draft language discussion for resolution 2025-02 pertaining to adding language to the zoning resolution regarding regulation of shipping containers. Do you have something prepared that you would like to say, Sydney?
I was just going to go back and just say this is what was presented to this body in the work study session in July. And so it came back to you guys in the form of the resolution at the last planning commission meeting, just with a couple little changes to state that would clarify that UK Codes is responsible for the design aspect. If it's going to be an accessory dwelling, that's going to be a special exception through the Board of Zoning Appeals. And again, this is just language that was put together because when it's the job of the planning department when requested, particularly by department heads or county commissioners, planning commissioners, that we take a look at these things and see if these are things that we want to incorporate into the regulatory documents. So there was obviously good discussion at the last meeting that said, hey, we need to take a closer look at this and refine our language and make sure this is what we want to be moving forward. And so that is what is before you tonight. I did try to address some of the comments that we had received, and that is what is on in your packets. There was a little bit of language that I cleaned up, and some of it just needed to be reorganized in a way to get a little bit more sense. And then I tried to clean up some of the language per those suggestions in those emails. But really and truly, if you want me to go through that, I can. But if not, then whatever you want to discuss.
Okay, I'm going to let the chairman take over. I would like to ask for our law director's opinion. I think we've overcomplicated things. I think it's just a symbol of yes, they should be allowed, and yes, they should be regulated if they want to make it a dwelling or, But as far as just the whole reason that this was brought forward was because, they're illegal, and we have a lot of them, and we have no way to really regulate it. We don't have the money for a new department for it, so I think it's pretty cut and dried and simple that yes, they should be allowed, and yes, if you want to make it like a tiny home or a dwelling or something like that, but it should just fall under the regulations. And I don't think we need to get in the mud, but I would like to ask the law director's opinion as well.
Mr. Schindler. You're up.
Okay. I've had to do a quick cursory review of this because I've not been involved in the prior discussions. However, the staff attorney was. As an overview, 30,000 foot view here, I'm reading this as regulation for the sake of regulation. That's all I'm seeing here. And if these, what do we call them? I always call them connexes, shipping containers. If these shipping containers, upon somebody's review or reporting that they're being modified or turned into something else, they automatically by default fall into another category, which would require permitting and licensing. I think the mere fact of what somebody has on their property is going to create some big problems for us simply for the sake of them having that item on their property. Now, I'm saying that as an overview. I do not know how many complaints we receive over this. I do not know how big of an issue this is we've had to address in the past. I would defer to codes and planning as far as any reporting that's come from this. But on its face, I would not recommend requiring any kind of permitting process like we do for accessory structures or residential building or modifications or what do we call them now, these prefab houses, things of that nature. Because by default, they change category once that starts happening, and we regulate that. So that's my overview. I'll entertain any direct questions, but I don't want to waste everybody's time picking this apart unless you've got certain questions.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Sittler specifically? Okay, I don't know, I looked this afternoon and I know that John Belcher and I have both responded to the red line document that we got last week. I went through John's pretty thoroughly, and of course I wrote mine, so I've been through it thoroughly. Has anybody else been through John's or mine? Both, okay. Because I asked Mr. Sittler to make some copies of mine if anybody would like it. I would like to read something from it. You've got it?
We have it.
Oh, you got it already? Okay. If you'll indulge me, I spent a lot of time on this, and specifically today after I thought through the whole thing, I drafted it up. And so I'm going to specifically read from 2EIX. So if you'll indulge me here. In discussion with others and substantial thinking on my own, I'm convinced that what we're doing here could be a very slippery slope. The reason I moved to the unincorporated counties because of the open land maps and freedom it created from a much lower government overreach perspective. I live on a 5-acre lot on a country road with many 5-acre or greater lots. Only in the last 7 years have we seen the 1-acre lots move onto our street. Most recently, Shell Brothers has developed a 22-unit tract that you're all familiar with, mostly 100,000 square feet or bigger lots. They will be developing another 107-acre site with 32 lots of similar size soon. Theoretically, everything on my road from here on out will be 5 acres or more because of the zoning changes initiated by this body. And it was great work, folks. On my road, we have beautiful new homes, simpler, older, and smaller homes, mobile homes, old wood barns, sheet metal pole barns, small outbuildings, farm equipment, industrial equipment, and much more. None of these structures were approved by an architectural review board. There is no consistency of architectural materials on any single lot between buildings. There is no street homeowners association controlling the exterior beauty or lack thereof of our buildings or yards. In summary, very little government overreach. Property rights, one of the founding institutions of this country, are still sacred in the unincorporated county. As a resident of that unincorporated county, I feel and appreciate those property rights every day. My concern is that we are opening a Pandora's box here that we may regret unsealing. If we require architectural features on a shipping container, which admittedly is not very attractive, when do we start telling homeowners that every new house built in any given area must be Cape Cod or ranch style? When do we outlaw corrugated sheet metal buildings? These are all things that have happened in Southern California where I'm from.
Personally, I think they're hideous, but beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. If I never see another 3-story tiny house again, it'll be too soon. But many think they're beautiful. I do not believe I, nor anybody else, should have the right to go to the county codes enforcement and anonymously complain that my neighbor built a pump house from an old barnwood building and made it look like an old outhouse on the basis that it is inconsistent with his house, which is clad in tan brick. It is my understanding that complaints on shipping containers are few and far between. We should be very careful and tread lightly on this issue. So I think I'm saying what Commissioner Miller is saying in summary, that perhaps with this document, we're going a bit too far. We're saying, okay, take this rectangular box that's made out of steel and use the same materials as your house is built out of, if that's the way it's going to be used. Put a raked roof on it, minimum 3 12 pitch. And I just don't know, I mean, you know, my wife would never let me build a pole barn in our backyard. But she would be happy if it was brick clad. But that's our discretion, and that's, you know, our prerogative. And the beauty of the county unincorporated is that we do have big lots. We insure that, at least for the time being. That's what the law is, what the building codes are. And I don't know that we should be requiring somebody to have a landscape buffer around their house or an outbuilding or anything else. And so as we debate this, I just wanted to express my thoughts on it like Commissioner Miller has, and Mr. Sittler has given us his legal impression of it. But we need to think through what we're really doing, because we could really be triggering something that we never wanted to do. So at that point, I will entertain other questions from anybody. Mr. Stroll.
I just have one comment now, caveat to two prior speakers. And I agree, the overreach is an issue, something that we have to stay sensitive to. But when I look at page 225, paragraph E, in the draft, the red colored letters, the first bullet it says, excuse me, I'm sorry. The second bullet, the shipping container must be supported by continuous footing to be elevated to. Now, I'm not going to talk about the 24 inches, because we talked about that last meeting, and the engineers determine that height. I'll stay out of that, because they're experts in that. The supported by continuous footing, unfortunately, I think whoever wrote this, that they didn't understand that a Connex, as our attorney rightfully mentioned and defined it, a shipping container Connex is made and it's designed to be supported on each corner. That's how they're picked up, that's how they're transported, it's how they're put on ships. So I think we need to be careful when we say this, because it may be a little overreach. We're talking about supported by continuous footing. That doesn't even make sense. Because as long as you have the corners supported, that's what's important. So I think that's a case in point right there that we need to be really sensitive about how far we go. And that falls right in line with the last two speakers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At the moment, there are no other questions, but I agree with Mr. Strahl, and I think that's why the one point in here is that it must be designed by an architect or a structural engineer. They would know how connexes are designed and where the stresses are the worst and the least. So I think going back to what Mr. Sittler said, depending on the use of the Connex, you know, it's just as a building structure that's made out of different materials than we're accustomed to. We're accustomed to wood frame, brick clad, or concrete block, or tilt-up concrete. We don't usually see houses built with 3x3 tube steel corners and 1/4-inch sheet metal or 1/8-inch sheet metal. And I'm sure the connexes are designed differently from one to another. So the thing that would need to happen is if you want one of these for your home, you want to build a house out of 3, 4, or 5 of them, then you have to incorporate a structural engineer or an architect who will probably then incorporate a structural engineer to design the house and be concerned about all the structural elements with it. So I think, we talk about it being a workshop or an outbuilding or a storage. All those have different applications and all of those have different needs as far as the structural design. I think what I'm most concerned about is requiring architectural features that we don't even concern ourselves with when somebody's building a house, but now we're concerned about them doing it with a connex. That's probably overreach as far as a government standpoint. I mean, your neighbors can come up and talk to you about it or not, or they can shield it, if it's too close to their property line, but we do have side setbacks that we've established. So I think what we need to do is, as Commissioner Miller said, simplify the document probably quite a bit. And they should be legal. They're totally legitimate structures that can take a lot more than a regular house can. It's just how you attach it to the ground for the use it is. I don't think we should be getting involved in architectural features of the house. So that's my thought. Mr. Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I think we've previously discussed, it is difficult and almost impossible at scale to enforce what's currently on the books. So we all agree to step away from that. I think we are stepping a little bit too far into potential overreach. I could see if we get into a place of maybe, if it's an acre or smaller, having too many of them on a property, I can see where that would become an issue, and perhaps we need to talk about that a little bit further. But when we're talking about properties that are 5 acres or more out in the county, you're not talking about the potentially encroaching on somebody else's property or a violation of the neighbor's rights potentially at that point, right? We have the space for these objects. So if it's something for storage, I lean toward, again, leaning back on maybe a storage shed type regulations that we have on the books, something along those lines, as opposed to reinventing the wheel and potentially over-regulating here. Shipping containers that are used for any kind of primary residence or something that requires occupancy, as long as it, again, kind of adheres to what we have on the books for those types of structures, or if somebody has maybe a small farmer's market storefront out of one, they convert it into something like that, as long as it has the proper electrical approvals and plumbing approvals and things like that that are required for any building that's occupied. I would say we fall under the existing regulation as well, so I don't think this needs to go to this level that this was drafted. I think we definitely need to pull that back, in my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Thank you. We don't have any concerned citizens? We don't have a list or anything. Since we have Mr. Wright here, Marshall, do you have any thoughts on this at all?
I just got one comment.
I would like to make a motion to suspend the rule.
We're not ready.
Oh, we're not? Okay. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Commissioner, Chairman. Thank y'all. Is it on?
Just push.
Blue bit.
There you
There we
go.
go.
I just want to thank the committee for taking this on, reviewing it. When Todd and I first started working on this document, we're inspectors. We don't write much legislation. And it was always our hope that the Board of Construction Appeals and the Planning Committee and the Legislative Committee to take what we put together and improved on it. So I just want to express my appreciation to you. We're ready to come up with. We we respect and appreciate. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
Mr. Curious if you could inform us, do they have any kind of, can they quantify kind of the complaints or the infractions that they're seeing from that level?
Did you hear the question, Marshall?
Marshall.
Do you have a quantification of complaints regarding these structures? How many a year, how many a month?
If it's okay, could I defer that question to Todd?
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what I did. I basically went back to 2023, and there was 8 of them that I'd worked. 4 of them are gone. 2 of them I'm still working, and maybe a couple too. We got plans to get moved, but it's not a huge problem, to be honest with you.
Could you come up to the mic, Todd, please? Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So about 8 since 2023.
That's right.
And because they're illegal, you have get moved.
Yes,
They've sold them or whatever.
that's right.
Okay. Do you have, with your experience in the field and the code compliance, if they were made legal, which is what we're talking about, how would that affect anything in the unincorporated county, in your opinion?
I'm just basically thinking you're offering up an option. As far as the appearance, I think that's where the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
And people do or don't like it. You know, having your right to own your property and do what you want. That's okay until they move that thing to next to your house and you start having a problem about selling your house. So those are issues that are relevant to all the code violations that I have, whether it's high grass or what, junk cars, etc.
Do you think the side setbacks and front and back setbacks that you have helped put into this document, do you think that those will matter at all?
Could.
I mean, you know, I know that years ago, one of my neighbors built a big white pole barn, and everybody was up in arms for about 3 months, and then everybody kind of got used to it.
Yes.
And, you know, he didn't do anything illegal, and so what we're talking about is legalizing these things, making them so that they have to follow a code, and then you have to comply with that code. So I imagine that the complaints that you got were from neighbors who had just looked at it too long and were unhappy.
Yes.
And,
And they usually don't wait. It's
yeah.
not too long. It's like they pulled this.
Been here 5 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
Does anybody else have any questions for him? No? Okay, thank you very much. I see Mr. Belcher has a question.
I just want to state that I agree with the discussion that's occurred thus far, and just point out that, and I don't know, you know, if there are any regulations needed. I think Mr. Issa mentioned that earlier. But to use an example, Mr. Straw was talking about the crawl space. There's several hundred homes in Sumner County that don't have a crawl space. They're built on slabs, if they're built on slabs. So, you know, I just want to concur with the statements that have been made that this, I think, is just going way too deep into the bushes. And if we need anything, it needs to be greatly simplified, if we need anything, other than just making them legal.
Mr. Boyd, could you comment on it? You're now the department head.
Concerning with the question that Mr. Belcher asked.
Do you have any opinions on the way we should go with this?
I don't.
You don't?
Yeah, whatever your wishes are for us to provide, you know, regulations that you want to see. So that's what our job will be, is to provide that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holmes.
I would just like to agree with everyone here, and I think in this particular case, less is more. Getting into the weeds, creating jobs, making people do more things than they need to, is not the business that we're in. I think that when you were talking about beauty and the eye of the beholder, that is very accurate, and you can't make people be a good neighbor or anything like that. There's going to be always something. Tall grass, their outhouse, yeah. I mean, there's a million different things, and this is just added to that list. So I think that we allow them, and then people get to be free to handle it in the way that they need to, unless it changes the scope of what they want it to do, and then the other regulations, fall into place. Just my 2 cents.
That was 3 cents. That was good.
Sorry.
Commissioner Miller.
I would also like to thank the planning department and the codes department for all their hard work. I guess we had to start somewhere, and they spent a lot of time, and like Mr. Gray said, this is what they do. They regulate, and so I think that the direction that it went was complete overreach. We live in the county, unincorporated areas live in the county for a reason. If you live in a subdivision with an HOA, obviously you can't do this. If you live in the city, obviously you can't do this. But people choose to live in the rural county for a reason, and that is for less government overreach and less regulations and a little bit less taxes. So you live in the city, you pay city taxes and your trash pickup. We pay for our own trash in the county. There's a lot of, it's not for everybody, and it is for some people. So, pretty much in agreement. I already said that. I kind of started it off, but I think that we don't vote tonight, obviously, but I think that it just needs to come before us with, my opinion is that they should be allowed, and if somebody wants to make it a better structure, then it already falls under, as the law director, Mr. Sidler said, it falls under those regulations. And I'm glad we're here, I'm glad we're discussing this, and I'm glad we're kind of pulling it back. So I think everybody's in agreement.
Just one more quick comment.
Sure.
The one thing I did think was very important is that we do pay attention to the flood zone regulations or restrictions that we talk about here. These in a flood zone could be deadly to any residents downstream. Having one of those coming through your house at a high rate of speed is absolutely a life threat. So I do want to make sure we do, when we draft this, include definitively any restrictions with heavy flood zones, anything like that, that is potentially being picked up and sent downstream.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're absolutely right. Those things float really well, and they get moving pretty fast, even when they're filled. I think, I'll get him in a second, Steve, thanks. I believe a lot of this document is appropriate. So, it's going to be interesting to go through it and see what we keep and what we don't. I think the side setbacks are good, the front setbacks are good. That's where I'm in a quandary a little bit right now. Where do we go from here? Mr. Boyd, you have a question, but maybe you can address that too.
What I was going to say is all the floodplain regulations you mentioned, they have to comply with all those regulations. So they'd be, that's what I was commenting on.
So that's already in place, just like everything.
Or just like everything like this now.
Okay, so it sounds like the commission, correct me if I'm wrong, the commission is in full agreement that these should be legalized. These should be legal in the county. Oh, Mr. Sidler.
This is a study session. We're not going to take a straw vote.
Okay. All right, so, Sydney, where do you think we go from here?
So from what I'm hearing, this resolution needs to be shelved. And then if there's any language that needs to be added, then we can do that in another work session at some point to see if there's anything. But as for now, we're leaving this alone. Is that what I'm understanding?
I think so. and I will take a stab at it and send you notes. I mean, I did some, but now that I know the direction we're going, we can get more definitive about it. So, anything else? Mr. Issa?
I was just going to say, in my head, kind of something along the lines of if it's going to be used as a shed type structure, some kind of auxiliary structure, I'm not sure what the exact word is, but maybe direct the residents to the appropriate section of the existing code and what those regulations look like there. If it's going to be used as a residence, have them directed to that code. So we could, I think, oversimplify, we could simplify a lot of this language just by simply pointing it into the direction of the existing code and not need to have it kind of, redundant verbiage in multiple areas. But that's kind of what I saw in my mind's eye when thinking about these things.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think these are modular building sections. We have these small barns that the Amish are famous for, and they're portable. They're on skids, and you can pull them all around the yard. They're not fixed to the ground at all, the foundation. On the other hand, these can be like a modular home. You take 4 or 5 of them, and I was scouring pictures and thought, that's pretty interesting stuff. So they can be used as workshops and banked together. You can use it for a lot of different things. So it's just the material they're made out of is what differentiates them from a stick-built structure. And so I think that codes and code compliance people working together will be able to say, well, if it's used, depending on the application, this is how we need to deal with it. Does it need a subfloor? Does it need a slab? What does it need? Mr. Belcher?
Yes, Sydney, you have those pictures that I sent you? I sent me some pictures that I found on the internet that I just thought we'd display just to show some of what some people have done with these. And I wouldn't mind living in some of them.
Yeah.
Bear with me here, this is having a second monitor that's a projector is fun.
I must say thank you, everybody, for the time. Not only code compliance. Do you have a question?
Just a quick comment.
Sure, go ahead. Love to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, appreciate it. I'd just like to say that shipping containers has already been inserted in the commercial building codes. It's the residential codes that's lagging behind. But even if somebody came to us wanting a permit for commercial using shipping containers, we still wouldn't approve it until zoning looked at and approved it first. That's
While you're up, Marshall, what do they use them for in commercial?
It seems like they are used a lot for restaurants.
Really?
Yes, sir. They're quite trendy right now throughout the country for commercial and that.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
I might also add the large complex is in Nashville. It's apartments that exist in Nashville.
Oh, really? Right at the fairgrounds?
It's in South Nashville. yes.
Nashville there?
I think I got all of them.
If I might also add real quick, ordinarily, if you look at a person's existing home, you can imagine, in my opinion anyway, you can imagine what a storage facility might look like on their property. If the house is run down and not well kept, that's probably what they're going to end up. If the house is neat as a pin, the storage container for whatever it's being used for is probably going to be really, good shape.
And I didn't see a raked roof with a 3 and 12 pitch at all. All right, well, appreciate everybody's work on this. I'm glad we did this deep dive because I think once we really dug into it, I think our opinions have changed. I know mine certainly has. The more I dug into the regulations that we had come up with, it just brought more questions. So I think this was really good, folks, and I thank you for taking your Wednesday afternoon to do it. Do we have to adjourn? No? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you soon.